Hey, so today I will be giving you guys some tips on how to book loads with freight brokers. As you guys know, I'm a freight broker. So one thing that I notice is that when I talk to a lot of people, whether they reach out to me via email and then I end up giving them a call and they're actually booking their own loads, or if I'm talking to a dispatcher that has started a dispatching company, you know, they might bring up something as, for example, they might say, hey Manny, I booked a load and then when my driver or when I got to the actual receiver, the freight was that I was picking up wasn't what we discussed. It wasn't what was described on the load board. So sometimes you have to ask these brokers, you know, multiple questions before booking a load. There's going to be a lot of times, if you guys know, if you have booked a load on the load board, sometimes you could call up a broker and that broker, right when you call them up, you know, you'll give them your MC number and then he'll just say, hey, do you want the load? Because he feel that you have already got all of the information off of the load board. So some of you guys will be so fast to just say, yes, I'll take the load. And then if you're already linked in with them and that you're already approved carrier for their company, for their brokerage, they'll just send you over a rate confirmation. So you want to start asking these freight brokers when you're booking these loads, these specific questions that I'm about to give to you guys out there, because it's only going to make you guys life a lot more easier out there. Some of you guys are going to get to the receiver and the freight broker told you, or the load board said it was 12,000 pounds. And then when you get to the actual shipper, it's going to be 19,000 pounds. And I know some of you guys out there have actually experienced this before. Or if the load board said it's going to be 25 or 30 feet, then you get there and it's 40 feet long and maybe you already have a partial on your trailer, you won't be able to haul that load that's 25 to 30 feet. So these are questions that you guys have to ask these freight brokers out there. Don't let the freight brokers rush basically you to book the load and then you don't end up getting all the information. And then once you actually make it to the shipper, it's not really what was on the load board, because you never know. Them brokers, there's plenty of times when I uploaded a load and I might have put 20 feet, but really it's 30 feet. It might just been a common human error. So you want to make sure you're asking these questions, because like I say, a lot of times freight brokers, they're very busy because they're trying to move multiple loads out every day. So they feel if they put enough information on the load board, once you call them up, as long as you were pretty much approved with them, once you give them your MC number, they might just try to rush you off the phone and just say, yeah, man, I'll get you on this load and I'll send that rate confirmation over. So also when you receive that rate confirmation, make sure that it has all of the details on there that was discussed during the time of booking this load. So also real quick, on September 8th, I will be hosting a live webinar covering how I'm able to profit in multiple areas in the transportation industry. So this will give you guys some good insight on how I make money in different ways. Like I told you guys, whether it's dispatching, brokering, leasing people onto my company, carrying freight, transporting freight with my personal truck. So let's just roll off into these questions real quick that I jot down. So when you call up a freight broker, and once you give that freight broker your MC number and that freight broker said, okay, you're good to go, whether you have already filled out a carrier packet for that company and you're already linked in with that company, or maybe you might have to fill out a carrier packet. So these are some of the questions that you guys want to ask. So for me, ask them, what is the zip code? What is the zip code of the pickup and what is the zip code of the destination? Because you want to ensure that whatever those miles say on the load board, you want to say that you want to make sure that it's accurate. Because there's plenty of times I've booked a load off a truck stop load board and DAT load board, and the actual mileage wasn't accurate. So sometimes it might be another 50 to 100 miles, or maybe even more for you guys. And I know some of you guys have experienced this, booking the load off the load board. So what you want to do is ask that broker, what is the zip code? And already have, you know, your system pull up, your Google Maps or whatever type of system you have, so you could do a distance calculation. So for me, I'm already going to have it pulled up. I'm going to type the zip codes in and I'm going to make sure it's the accurate mileage that was on the load board, because if not, I want to negotiate to a higher price, of course. So make sure you ask them, what's the zip code from the destination? From the pickup to the destination. Also, ask them, what's the commodity? What's really being hauled? You know, some of you guys are just going to book loads and you're not really going to know what's being hauled. Know what's actually going to be going on your trailer before you pull into that shipper, you know, so you won't be surprised once you pull into that shipper. Also, ask them what's the dimensions. This is very critical. Ask them what is the length. If you guys have a 40-foot hot shot, you don't want to be picking up a load that really exceeds that. You can hang off the back of that hot shot, but you don't want to be hanging off the back 8 feet, you know, or nothing like that. So always ask them what's the length, what's the width, because anything that's over 8 feet 6 inches is considered a wide load. So you want to make sure that you are not hauling, because sometimes I'll tell you, some of them brokers will try to get over because they don't want to pay you the actual wide load rate. So that even if the freight is 8 feet 7 inches, maybe the broker might, you know, try to see if you will overlook that, so you can actually haul that freight for a regular price instead of them paying you for the actual, you know, for hauling a wide load. So like I say, anything over 8 feet 6 inches is considered a wide load. Also, ask them what's the height. For me, from the ground to the top of my deck is about 30 inches, about 2.5 feet. So I don't want to haul anything over 10 feet that's 10 feet tall. That's just me. I know some of you guys might haul loads that's over 10 feet, but I don't want to put any loads on my trailer that's 10 feet tall. And really, I don't want to put loads on my trailer that's tall anyway, because once you start putting freight that's tall on your trailer, you're not going to get good gas mileage out there. So always ask the guys, what's the length, what's the width, what's the height? Also, what's the weight? Make sure that they know the exact weight, which they should have got from the shipper. If it's 12,500 pounds, that's how much it should be when you pull up to the actual shipper and get loaded up. If anything exceeds that weight, call that broker back and renegotiate that rate to get more money if you can actually haul a little bit heavier. Now, if you can't haul, if it's 22,000 pounds and you guys can't haul 22,000 pounds, just reject it and make sure that you let them know, hey, at the time of booking, this freight said it was 12,500 pounds. So I'm here now. Now it's 22,000 pounds. So I'm going to need a truck order not used. Basically meaning that I need you guys to pay me some money for wasting my time coming into this shipper when you guys knew that the freight was potentially could have been heavier. So another question, always ask about tarps, because that's very critical. Because if the broker if he fails to mention that load needs to be tarped, and when you pull up to the shipper, and if the shipper tell you, hey, this load needs to be tarped, so now you have to call the broker back, renegotiate the rate, because if any load ever needs to be tarped, you guys have to make sure that you are being compensated, make sure that you are making more money, because of course you have to do extra work because of the tarp job. And also make sure you know that load has to be tarped, because sometimes you could pull up to a shipper and that load really needs to be tarped, and maybe the loader don't tell you and you pull off. And then if something happened to that freight, if it start raining and then that freight end up getting rusted out, now you guys will be faced with a cargo claim. Now you have to go through a cargo claim. So make sure you ask them brokers, hey, do this load need to be tarped? Ask them, do it need to be a 4-foot drop tarp, 6-foot drop tarp, 8-foot drop tarp, to make sure that you can accommodate that tarp job. Also, ask them, do this load, what's the securement? Do I need to secure it with straps or do I need to secure it with chains? So you can already know what you're going to have to use when you arrive at that shipper. And also ask them how many straps, how many chains, because some of you guys might only have 8 chains and 8 binders, but it might take 10 chains and 10 chain binders. So maybe the shipper might be like, well, you don't have 10 chains, 10 chain binders, so I can't load you up. So make sure you're asking how many is it going to require, how many straps, because some of these loads will require 12 straps, 14 straps before you actually leave out the shipper. And some of these shippers are very strict. So make sure you ask that question. Also ask, what is the method of loading? Meaning that, how are they going to load this and unload it? Are they going to use a forklift? Are they going to use a crane? So make sure you ask them, what is the method of loading? Because if some of you guys are watching this video, if you have ever hauled a container, most of the time they're going to load that container with one of those big forklift things, and then they'll put it on your trailer, and then sometimes they'll load it with that, but when you get to the receiver, they're going to try to tell you they're going to drag it off your trailer, and that's pretty stupid. If any of you guys out there are hauling containers that's actually being dragged off your deck of your trailer, you guys are ruining your deck of your trailer. So make sure that you know what's the method. So really with me on the flatbed, I like them loading it up with a crane or a forklift. Anything else might be more of a challenge for the actual loader and the unloader, so it might take more time. You know, so I like to hear it's going to be loaded with a forklift or with a crane. Also, ask them, I know a lot of you guys don't ask these questions right here. You know, what do you pay for detention pay? What do you pay for layover pay? And do you pay for the lumper fees, just in case if you have to have a lumper? So basically the lumper fees is if your unloading or loading requires any type of additional equipment or resources that the actual shipper or receiver don't have, and they might have to call up some people to come out there to actually, you know, unload or load you up, and that's going to actually cost. So make sure that that's going to be covered, you know, with this actual rate that you're going to be hauling it for. And also the layover, you might have to lay over. There's times when I have called up, you know, brokers, and they might say, yeah, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars because it's a layover. Make sure that layover pay makes sense to you, because you don't want your truck to be tied up for so long out there. Also, ask about the detention pay. You know, when does detention pay start? How much is it going to be? Is it going to start after an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? Make sure you ask these questions out there. Also, this is the most critical question. Ask that broker, is this load yours, or is it more like a bidding war? Do you have to bid on it? Because you don't want to waste your time dealing with brokers that have to go out and bid on these loads, because it's basically going to waste your time, because now you have to wait 30 minutes to an hour for the broker to get back to you. So always ensure that you are asking those questions out there that, hey, is this your load? Because if it's their load, that means, okay, they're solid. I don't have to sit back and wait for this actual bid to hopefully get accepted and go through. Also ask, what are the pickup and drop off hours? So you guys know, so you don't be rushing out there. You know, there's times when you might have to be at that shipper by 3 or 4 p.m., but you might be 2 or 3 hours away at the time of booking that load. So you gotta account for traffic and stopping for fuel and all of that. So just always make sure you ask, hey, what are the pickup hours? What are the delivery hours? So you guys can start trip planning and plan your trip out. Also, ask this. This is a good question right here too, because this could help you out in the long run. Ask the actual broker, hey, do you have any reloads at the receiver? Because sometimes the actual broker have a relationship with the shipper too, and then that broker could potentially already get you reloaded at the actual shipper. So there's plenty of times when the broker has called me up and say, hey Manny, hey, I got a reload at the actual location coming back or going somewhere else, and I could pay you this much amount of money. So that'll save you time from actually getting on the load board, looking for a load. You can already have a reload at the actual receiver when you drop off. So make sure you ask that question too. And like I said earlier, make sure you ask a question about wide loads, because that's a very critical question too. Because like I say, when you haul in wide loads, you have to have a permit for every state that you're going through. So if I start in Indianapolis and I'm going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I have to have a hauling permit for anything that's over 8 feet 6 inches wide. I have to have a hauling permit in Indiana, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania. Every state that you're going to enter, you have to have a permit. So make sure that you guys are negotiating for good rates when it comes to wide loads out there. And the last question that you really want to ask them is, hey, what's the rate? You know, so if they tell you that it's $1,200, just don't stop there. Make sure you guys are negotiating. Maybe that $1,200 might be a good rate for you, but always negotiate higher, because one thing about it is the brokers, they have money in these loads and they are willing to negotiate. But some of you guys out there are just so quick to book loads that you guys are leaving money on the table. So make sure you are actually negotiating out here. So that was about 12 or 13 questions. Those are real quick questions. It might seem like it might take a long time, but once you get the rhythm down, those questions should become ingrained into your head. So you're always asking those questions, even if it's on the load board. Still ask those questions with the broker so that you guys have some solid answers out there when you guys are booking them loads. So that's pretty much it right now. If you guys have any questions out there, feel free to send me an email at broker@manniestrans.com. Go visit my website, www.extraordinarymovement.com. Like I say, EOM, Extraordinary Movement. Go follow me on Facebook at Manny's Movement LLC. Go follow me on IG at Manny's Movement. And everybody out there, man, like I always tell you guys, CEO, commit, execute, and be obsessed. Everyone be great out there.